Peggy Frank. Tom Coe.
Here.
John Hutchins.
Here.
Tim Keeler.
Here.
Leslie Meyer. Jeff Walters. Dan Stewart. David Reed.
Here.
I'm here. Mike Clark.
Here. At this time, Mike Clark, attorney, has something to say.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here. I want to address some rules some proposed rules for our public hearing before we get started. These were published in the Ledger Independent and have been on the City of Maysville webpage for several days. I hope everybody got a chance to review them. If not, they can be read. But anyway, Mr. Larger and I have put together a proposed set of rules for our public hearing. Our motivation in structuring the rules as we have is to get as much differing input from the public as possible. We know that what the Planning Commission is addressing tonight on Thursday is of much concern to the community, and we want the Commission to hear from as much of the community as possible before it renders any recommendation. We acknowledge that many people and groups would like the opportunity to say more, but we erred on the side of volume of participation. Second, we have allowed in these proposed rules for written comments to be admitted into the record if those comments follow the rules of submission which were published in the newspaper on the City of Maysville's webpage. Again, we want to allow for greater community participation in this process, which we believe allowing written comments will do. Third, we are still in a COVID-19 world much as we don't want to be. That has led to various restrictions on the number of persons we're allowing in the room at one time, social distancing, masks, etc. All those things that everybody's tired of, but we still have to abide by. Additionally, we have to abide by the rules of our gracious host, the Maysville Community and Technical College, who has a strict mask mandate. And we chose this site due to its combination of size and technical capacity, ease of accessibility, etc. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge that we have received objections to some of our proposed rules. Specifically, I received a letter from Daniel Hunt on behalf of Bill Marshall, which outlined several objections his client has to our proposed rules. He also requested that his letter be admitted to the record. I'm going to recommend to the Commission that it be admitted to the record for its stated objections to our rules, but not as evidence, since it doesn't otherwise meet the rules we've suggested to the Commission for the conduct of this hearing. In response to its specific objections, I'm comfortable from a legal perspective on our proposed rules, as well as the way we've gone about this process. I can't guarantee that this body's deliberations on solar energy will eventually be subject to legal challenge, but I'm satisfied with the approach we've taken. It's important to remember that what we're doing today is considering a text amendment to our land use management ordinance and not a map amendment. Map amendments are much more adjudicative in nature and subject to much more strict due process considerations. Text amendments, on the other hand, and I believe case law bears this out, are more legislative in nature, and as the prior Kentucky court has observed, it can be correctly said in those situations that the legislative body is acting in a purely policy-making role, and therefore a trial-type hearing is not required by due process, and probably is neither a feasible nor a practicable method. Accordingly, I do not believe we are required, nor do I recommend, that we allow cross-examination of individual presenters by other attendees of this hearing. Furthermore, while members of the Commission are always entitled to ask questions of individual presenters, in the aforementioned interest of hearing from as many individuals as we can accommodate, I recommend that questioning by the Commission be limited to the essentials. Finally, in the interest of clarity of the record, I recommend that individual presenters and Commission members who want to ask questions remove their masks when speaking and replace them when finished. Having said all of that, I recommend to the Commission that they adopt proposed rules for conduct of this hearing and proceed accordingly. response to that comment, I would say that these are proposed rules, and if the commission votes to amend them to reflect that, you can certainly do so. Mr. T-Gar, can I interrupt just 1 second? So did you all adopt the rules but amended them with Ms. Walter's amendment? Is that exactly what you did? Yeah. Okay. One second, first. Let me go through my normal spiel for public hearing. Everyone, welcome to this public hearing for the proposed regulation of solar energy systems in Mason County. At this time, I'd like to demonstrate evidence that this public hearing was advertised. Here is a copy of the tear sheet for the advertisement and the letter of intent dated November 5th, 2021. All members of the public will have the opportunity to address the board. As a part of the rules that they adopted, they must state their name and addresses when speaking, or before they speak. At this time, I'm going to assume that everybody in the room is going to speak. So please, all of you, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or otherwise affirm to tell the truth? Please say I do. Excellent. Thank you. Tim, at this time, you can continue on with what you're saying.
This time, the urban for solar developer and making a presentation. Please, the microphone, who you are, who you're with.
Members of the Mason County Commission, for the record, my name is Bill Bailey. I represent Interject Renewable Energy USA. I'm joined here tonight by Janet Roby, our manager of community relations. I have a bachelor's degree in economics from Stanford University, a master's degree in mineral economics from Pennsylvania State University, and 34 years experience in developing and investing in renewable energy projects. Prior to starting my career in renewable energy, I was an Eastern U.S. steam coal analyst for a major international mining company, marketing coal from our Kentucky coal mine to regional electric utility coal-fired generators, some of which have been or will be shut down and decommissioned. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight related to the development of the solar energy ordinance for Mason County. This is an important issue for the community as well as for development. Once implemented, the ordinance will provide certainty for developers, allowing them to make decisions on solar energy projects that provide low-cost, emission-free electricity to local and regional electric utilities and corporations, and provide multiple long-term economic benefits to the local community. For over 30 years, Intertex has believed in a world where abundant renewable energy promotes healthier communities and creates shared prosperity. As an independent renewable power producer with acquires, owns and operates hydroelectric facilities, wind energy projects, solar energy projects, and energy storage facilities, Intertex is convinced that generating power from renewable sources will lead to the way to a better world. Intertex conducts operations in Canada, the United States, France, and Chile, and manages a large portfolio of high-quality assets currently consisting of interest in 79 operating facilities with an aggregate total installed capacity of just over 3,800 megawatts. We pride ourselves in being good long-term partners and neighbors in the communities in which we operate, and strive to share the long-term value of our operating facilities with all project shares. In terms of Mason County, Intertex is in a very early stage of evaluating a potential solar energy generation facility. We held a public meeting on August 11th that many here tonight attended. During that meeting, we presented the following information of two Intertex solar energy projects. Oakcrest Solar, located in Brown County, Ohio, 32 miles to the north, and Calamina Solar, located in Highland County, Ohio, 9 miles to the north of Oakcrest. These are two 200-megawatt solar PV single-axis practices. They are located in areas of low population density on Ohio's best solar resources, relatively flat, and with excellent access to available capacity on the regional transmission system. They utilize approximately 1,250 to 1,400 acres. Oakcrest is connected to a 138 kV substation, while Palomino will connect to a 138 kV transmission. Each project will produce enough clean emission electricity to power the equivalent of approximately 39,000 Ohio homes per year. Each project will provide the local communities with stable revenues of $1.8 million per year over an expected 30-year period. As one of the first utility-scale solar energy projects to be constructed in the region, we have given multiple site tours of Oakcrest to members of the media and local government officials, including the Mason County Joint Planning Commission in July, and most recently, an Ohio County Regional Planning Commission, following which one member submitted public comments to the Ohio Power Siting Board, including the following. I encourage you to embrace solar energy that we need so much. I went down. I would encourage all of you to do this. Go down 32 miles, downstate Route 60 through Fayetteville, and go to the Hillcrest. What is this thing they are trying to bring to our county? There's a personality license. I was impressed. I touched them. I got in there. As a biologist, there were birds and wildlife that were down there killed. They are all, everything is as it should be. It seems that they have taken the extraordinary procedures to try to make this a clean and safe operation. I would say this is the way of the future. And so as a result, because it is good for our economics, that's a big deal with the regional planning commission. Another thing that you can possibly do is learn about a thing called PILOT, P-I-L-O-T, payment in lieu of tax. You get money for your schools, money for your emergency vehicles, EMT5. This is the thing that will save you money in the long run. And I thought that the ones that were provided the thing that is a pilot was I am quite interested. Grasslands, the offer square. We have lost minerals. We have lost our buildings. All of these sorts of things are a symptom of something that's wrong. This is just captured and this would be available. And when I was there, wildlife were already local. This is the best way, and I encourage you to embrace it. With regard to grassland energy origins, we have the following high-level comments and questions. Section 41408. We would look to be consistent with setback distances established for the solar energy project in neighboring counties. Substation and transmission poles should be included in the table, such that there is a complete summary of setback, as noted in Section B-1 Code of Ordinance. Section 414.09. All solar panel services shall be met or not. Section 414.10. We request that the meteorological or net stations be added to the height restrictions excluded. Section 414.10. Noise and vibration restrictions are more restrictive than what we are seeing in other jurisdictions, such as Ohio and Hawaii. Are there any construction noise restrictions, or is it strictly operational? For how many receptors are you going to require noise on? Section 414.16.8. Sound study, similar to Section 414.10. For how many receptors are you going to require noise following each vessel? Finally, 414.16.10 light reflection study. Typically, in other jurisdictions, there's a subset of occupied structures incorporated into a visual flavor model, rather than every individual occupied structure. It's important to address why solar energy power from Mason County and Kentucky. Solar electric generating facilities provide quiet and emission-free power. There is an increased demand for renewable power. Corporations are looking for renewable power to supply their new offices and manufacturing facilities that bring jobs to the area. Mason County has the ability to be a leader in this development. In addition to providing cleaner air, solar energy projects provide benefits to the community, short-term and long-term jobs. Local restaurants, hotels, and businesses benefit from the project workers' spending. Today we are requesting the Joint Planning Commission fairly look at policy changes connected to the renewable energy projects that have Mason County's best interests at heart. We ask for your leadership to provide a certain future for the community, for developers, and for solar energy projects to come to the development of a well-designed solar energy ordinance that looks at each project individually. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you may have. Approximately 660,000. The 200 megawatt plant.
And right now, you are really good at working with farmland in the neighborhood of coming days.
We have, at Hillcrest, we have about 1,260 acres behind us.
And in Mason County,
Solar. We have, I think it's 1,000 acres. We have roughly or just over 1,000 acres. Yeah. Right. No. Right. Yeah.
This is what you all presented in August.
Yes.
That's
That's still it.
as an
Solar industry.
Sure. Yep. I'd like to go to those Good evening, everyone.
name is Austin Roach. I'm a developer with Oxygen Energy. I have a bachelor's degree in environmental management and a graduate degree from Indiana University School of Public and Environmental Affairs and Energy Policy and Sustainable Development. I am part of the team working on the Mason County project, and I am here this evening on behalf of Oxygen and the Mason County Solar Project. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight as we work towards a liberate solar ordinance that allows investments in solar energy to move forward, benefiting the businesses and people of Mason County and Mason Village. I've been a part of our Mason County project for the last year, from the early preparations for our kickoff event, when we bought meals for the Mason Lake Fairground, to our participation in the charity golf scramble at the Laurel Golf Club, in support of Maysville Community Technical College, to the opening of our local office downtown, which was furnished with purchases from McRoberts Furniture, to our donation of meals on several occasions to the Ion Center for Violence Prevention. We have depended on the professionalism of folks like the team at Standard Equipment to get baskets and masks printed for meetings and hearings, as well as our friends at our work who have given us a place to be brief after a hard day's work. It has been rewarding to work with so many local businesses, and we hope that these relationships will continue to grow. The most important part of my job as a developer has been listening to and answering questions from the public that have come through the meetings that we've held, our office phone lines, and our project email addresses. I work in solar energy. However, I do understand that this is a new technology in the area. I also understand that people are rightly skeptical of those who come into the community making big promises. So this evening, I want to thank you, commissioners, for the crash course that you're taking in solar energy. I want to thank you for taking the time to visit sites that are under construction, as well as operational. There is no replacing the real experience of going to a site and listening to the input, seeing the spacing between the panels and how they curve with the landscape, and how glare is in fact minimized. Before I continue, I do want to note that my colleague Adam Stratton has also submitted a written letter to the Commission. His letter has additional details about the projects and our hopes to work with. Anyways, with my time tonight, I want to share some thoughts on what the arrival of utility-scale solar will mean for Mason County. The first thing it will do is bring hundreds of jobs related to construction to the county by putting people to work on a large infrastructure project. It will give them the skills and safety training that will prepare them for other infrastructure jobs that will be coming to the Commonwealth. The recently passed infrastructure bill will bring more than $5 million in state-of-the-art roads and bridges, meaning that these solar projects will be a launch pad for a highly trained, modern infrastructure workforce made right here in Mason County. There will also be indirect benefits that the workforce will be renting hotel rooms and homes. They will be eating out and buying morning coffee. The trucks they drive will be fueled up and serviced. They will be buying things like gloves, jeans, and boots. The project itself will require materials like aggregate and wiring, which will be trucked by drivers with CDLs. The project will send positive economic ripples to Mason County and the Mason area. When the construction is complete and the project is finally generating electricity, it will also generate tax revenue to support the county and local schools, emergency response, and law enforcement. We look forward to continuing our work with Maysville Community Technical College and believe that there may be great opportunities to partner with the solar industry down the road. The project will also become a focal point of focal development efforts. Many companies that are looking to expand and relocate are also looking for locally produced clean energy. The local school children will be a place to come and learn about renewable development, a place that will inspire the next generation. And for the participating landowners, it will need financial security. Some landowners will be able to complete property improvements they've been putting off for years. And again, those projects will put more local contractors to work using locally sourced supplies. Other landowners will use release payments to buy more farmland. Oftentimes, we have seen farmers lease out their less productive farmland to buy more productive farmland. And in this way, solar energy offers a major support to farmers. Other developers tonight will speak about items like setbacks and streams, and we fully expect that decommissioning standards will be adopted by the Kentucky General Assembly this session that will set statewide standards that address these concerns. When you ask what solar energy means to Mason County, I want to talk to you about what having an Osceola project in your community actually means. At Osceola, we are strongly committed to our communities. We have what we call our social impact management plan, which dedicates a portion of our project revenue to community programs. And it's all driven by the needs that we hear about from you, the local community. I'd like to share a couple of these examples. In Stevenson County, Illinois, we have been able to award more than $100,000 in college scholarships to help more than 30 students go to school. In Cameron County, Texas, we helped a local science teacher build a STEM lab at their middle school to get students more engaged in science. And last year, we had a call from Chief McLeod of the Clemensburg Fire Department, who said that, like many others, the pandemic had prevented his department from holding many of its events, including our kitchen dinner. So we made a donation to help the department get through a tough year, which many others have. In closing, I want to urge the board to draw on all that it has learned these past several months. Pass an ordinance that does not block solar investments, but instead approve an ordinance that allows projects to move forward for developers who want to be long-term contributors to the Mason County and Hicksville area. Together, we can bring the benefits of solar to the whole community. Thank you for your time.
Do we have any more representatives?
Microphone. And then, microphone, please.
I have a question anyway. I do have, I'll ask you, on a 200 milliwatt project, how many solar panels would you anticipate having?
The size of our project in the 200 range, we'd be looking at similar 600 to 800.
How much electricity? I know you don't create electricity for your panels if the sun comes on. How much electricity for panels do you need on the rest of the state?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Do you need electricity from the grid to do any operations and exercise?
Very, very early on.
And the water that you need, does it come from water that is provided for the rest of the drinking water?
Again, very little groundwater for the facility itself, only water requirements for an operation building, which was likely staffed by the Senate.
In the building process, you use it otherwise not.
Correct. No water for the renovation of the facility.
The topsoil that you will use from
First, we are very appreciative to have the opportunity to speak here tonight, and just grateful that you are taking all the time and effort that it takes to go through this process. We know that it's a lot, so thank you for your work on that, and to George for relaying the information that we've been sharing. My name is Ellie Bleak. I am a developer at National Grid Renewables, and I'm joined by my colleague Lindsay Hesch, a senior permitting specialist. I'd like to start by giving a brief introduction to National Grid Renewables before handing things off to Lindsay, who will speak on recommended language related to sound setbacks and decommissioning.
Please slow down.
Sure.
Hey, maybe step back or something, you're muffled, it sounds.
Okay. Let me know if this better here? Okay. National Grid Renewables, we are a leading developer, owner, and operator of renewable energy projects across the U.S. And very unique to us, we were founded by a farmer. He has a farm with his brother in southern Minnesota, where we are headquartered. And he recognized the compatibility between renewable energy projects and farming, and instilled a strong value of being farmer-friendly throughout our community and in the way we do our work. We pride ourselves on being farmer-friendly and community-driven. And with that, I will pass things off to Lindsay.
Hello, sorry I'm short. My name is Lindsay Hesch. Thank you for the introduction, Ellie. I wasn't planning on providing my education and stuff, but I think I will. I have a bachelor's in biology from Hanover College and a master's in botany and a certificate in ecology from Miami University, Ohio, of course. I have been in the energy industry for about 14 years. I've worked on coal, natural gas pipelines, oil and gas, and it's about past 5 or so years I've been in solar energy. I'd like to say that I'm originally from Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, and I moved to North Carolina to get more in the solar energy industry, and it brings me great joy for the opportunity to try to bring solar to the great Commonwealth of Kentucky. That said, please see the packets in the folders for our more detailed comments on the ordinance. We did provide it in tabular format in order to meet the restrictions of the comments being provided, but if it would be easier, we also have it in a format of a Word document with a comment bubble specifically attached to the wording in the ordinance, but that would not meet the requirements. But if that's helpful, we will be happy to provide that. Thank you for meeting with us. Because the comments are pretty extensive, I'd like to just focus on 3 highlights for the purposes of today, which include sound, setbacks, and decommissioning. We understand the concern for sound disturbance, but as you yourselves have heard, sound levels at operational facilities are minimal on the interior to the site and effectively nothing at the project boundaries. I believe the restrictions proposed have positive intent, but I am putting this in our highlight section and have had a well-respected sound expert, Hessler Associates, who has emailed their comments through the proper process that has provided a letter that we provided ahead of time. They provided detailed commentary and recommendations on the ordinance because it's problematic, and as it's written, it is a moratorium. There are multiple reasons why the noise ordinance section is currently a moratorium, but most importantly, please note that the restriction of sound levels in there exceed the natural environment. It could not be possible to meet those sound requirements. Please listen to the expert carefully, and remember, this is something already being regulated by the Kentucky PSC. I highly recommend to best serve your constituents and get the most value out of the supplemental ordinance to the PSC that you allow their experts to manage this concern. Lastly, the burden of testing you have placed on the developers in response to complaints is not reasonable. I will say, anecdotally, in a previous role, I was the environmental manager for hundreds of solar facilities in development, construction, and operations. I have never had to address an operational noise complaint. Onto setbacks. This is another area that while I see positive intent and thoroughness in considering perceived impacts, it too is creating a moratorium as is currently written. I want you to have the best available information to help you make an informed decision. So let's start with the necessary setbacks that I do believe issuing these setbacks on property lines, residences, or other occupied dwellings and roads is expected and reasonable for the protection of non-participating landowners. That said, we have made some recommendations that I will only touch on as they will be in the written record through the comments that we provided. We recommend 50 feet from the property line, 300 feet from residences or other dwellings, as is our design goal in our Southern Ohio projects, and 50 feet from the center line of the roads. These setbacks should be from the closest solar panel and not include fencing. For example, in Southern Ohio, we propose using fencing similar to that used in agriculture and pastures. That's typical of the existing environment. So why is a setback from fencing necessary if it's similar to what's already being used in the area? As for the unnecessary setbacks, the following setbacks are not only atypical, but also problematic. Other right-of-ways, public conservation lands, community or rural residential districts, municipal and/or county boundaries, floodplains or floodways, wetlands, electric transmission or distribution lines, cell towers, radio, and TV. Some of these aren't applicable to solar facilities at all, like cell towers, radio, and TV. Some of them would discourage potential beneficial partnerships, like public conservation lands. Some of these would flat out create moratoriums, like required setbacks from interconnection lines we need to transfer the power we are producing, or setbacks from wetlands, which on large acreages are often protected within the fence line. It is clear these setbacks were originally designed for a moratorium, so I ask you to please reconsider using the Kentucky Draft Model Ordinance as a template for the next draft ordinance. This template was designed in a collaborative effort to target the constraints and concerns of solar development in Kentucky. Please do not waste the opportunity to benefit from this work. While solar and wind are both renewable energy projects, they are very different types of facilities and technologies, just as oranges and bananas are both fruit. Lastly, to touch on decommissioning, we want to remind you that solar is a very benign form of land use development. We are happy to have our construction team come and present to you in a Q&A to better understand the process. As it can be easily built, it too can be easily removed at the end of its useful life. And at that time, the land will have been allowed to rest, nutrients returning to the soil, and a more productive farmland available, again, to that landowner who had the vision for a creative way to manage their land. Please do not be swayed by those who will say the land will be destroyed or contaminated. There is no scientific reason to believe that. National Grid Renewables would be more than happy to work with you in creating a question and answer session with the NC State Clean Tech Center. They are a leading academic institution with solar development experts, and they can answer your questions about the health and safety of solar facilities. We continue to offer to provide you with presentations from our team and/or third-party experts, and we will continue to leave that on the table in order to answer your questions. We hope you will take us up on it so that your community can have an ordinance that encourages responsible solar development. Thank you, and that's all.
Very good. Very good. Annette, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I would ask that you please describe for me the fencing you're you're talking about, because what we saw at Malroar is taller than what normal fencing and farm fencing is.
Yes, I understand. And to be fair, we do also have projects in the country that have chain link fencing like you're saying as well. We have several projects proposed in southern Ohio, and what we're proposing is woven wire agricultural style fencing with wooden posts. It would still have to be 6 feet tall with a layer of barbed wire on top due to electric code requirements. But you know, it is possible, and so if you're having a fence like that, it's aesthetically appealing and beneficial.
It isn't the razor wire, it is pure barbed wire,
You mean like this?
like you see in a prison.
Oh, yeah. I believe that, I think it's like I believe, I'm on the record here, I believe it's like three straight strands across.
So it's regular barbed wire.
Yeah.
You
Smooth,
said
that's what you said.
NC State would be a good source.
For health and safety related information, yes, ma'am.
Okay. How long have they had solar that they have been watching, that they get the results from?
Yeah, so for context, I don't know where we stand now. So again, I am a Kentucky girl, but I did move away for energy jobs. And I'm in North Carolina now. And the reason I ended up in North Carolina is because they're one of the leaders in the country. It's kind of, or was considered at one point in time, the East Coast capital of solar energy. We were number 3 in the country, but as solar is developing, I think we've probably fallen from that. I don't know. But for that reason, that is why the NC State Clean Tech Center is more advanced in solar research, probably, I would say, than other institutions, just because we have strong presence in North Carolina.
You have a strong presence with the number of years that you've had a presence. What's the oldest project there?
I honestly don't know, but I would imagine, it's probably more than 10 years.
Really?
It is a very saturated market in North Carolina. So I could try to get you some more information on that. There is a white paper that NC State Clean Tech Center has on the health and safety of photovoltaic panels, and I have spoken to them. As an academic institution, we can, have them come out here and answer your questions about health and safety in panels.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. At this time, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We will come back.
Good job.
5 minutes, not 10 or 15, please.
Okay, well, we can talk after this is done. I think I need that train of thought. Thank you.
Close it.
Will cease or you'll be escorted out. I want to make that clear. Treat everyone with respect, and it makes it hard for court reporters, and it really discourages us to hear people take one side or the other. We're here to be fair. Back in session. Next on the agenda is citizens groups. Do we have any particular order for that, George?
Yes, I believe Solar Information County is going first according to the rules you adopted.
Okay.
And I also have a handout for you all from the citizens group.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name's Charles William Marshall.
Get the microphone up closer.
Have to move that up.
Maybe a challenge.
My name's Charles William Marshall, 6083 Key Pike, Maysville, Kentucky. Because of the limited time, I'm going to make a series of statements. I'm also submitting an exhibit with more details and an appendix providing supporting materials. Tobacco and dairy once provided the economic foundation of Mason County's agricultural sector. Their profits supported land ownership.
Bill, if you could be closer to the microphone, please.
You might need to, I couldn't hear you at all. So can you just speak up and get closer?
Will mine come up anymore? Coming towards you a little bit.
Test 1, 2. Can you hear me? Okay, so you want me to start over, or what did you hear?
Go ahead.
Yeah, just start over.
Because of limited time, I will make a series of statements. I'm also submitting an exhibit with some details and appendix providing supporting material. Tobacco and dairy once provided the economic foundation for Mason County's agricultural sector. Their profits supported land ownership. Both are almost gone from our area. They have been primarily replaced by grazing beef cattle and cash grain. Dramatic swings in both feed and cattle prices, coupled with livestock mortality, make it very daunting for a great cow-calf operation to pay for the land. Besides, animal waste, if not carefully managed, can hurt our water supply. Plus, livestock on wet sod can cause soil erosion. Continuous cash grain is hard on the land and accelerates soil erosion. Machinery capital requirements, narrow and erratic margins require ever-increasing acreages. Chemicals applied on row crop land can contaminate groundwater. Large-scale solar has many substantial economic and ecological benefits for Mason County citizens. It raises the lease payments to landowners by over $500 per acre per year. It raises the local tax district property tax revenue. At 2019 tax rates, Mason County's real estate property averages was $7.95 per acre. Solar real estate property tax will be approximately $88.85, an increase of over $80 for every year an acre is in solar. Or 6,000 acres of solar will provide, over 30 years, will contribute over $14 million to the local tax districts. Sod under solar will protect precious topsoil and is pollinator friendly. Well-regulated solar has stormwater control structures. During operation, solar will generate more local employment per acre than either cow-calf or cash grain does now. Solar panels are inert and do not pollute. Solar is a good neighbor in that it does not generate light, sound, and greatly reduces the cash grain ag chem pollution. Several matched pair comparisons show that, Several matched pair comparisons show no discernible impact on property values when solar farms are located near residential, agricultural, or industrial properties. Well-regulated solar will have a bond posted to assure its complete decommissioning. For these reasons, I support large-scale solar in Mason County. Several folks advertise that they want to stop solar. They approach it the same as they did wind. They want to fill any regulations with as many costly clauses as possible and prevent Mason County from receiving any solar benefits. Please think of our future. Demand solar regulations that support Mason County's future rather than protect the view of a few. I favor 35 changes to your draft ordinance, which I cover in my exhibit. I have included an annotated version of your proposed draft with any deletions in red and insertions in blue. For clarity, I've also presented a net effect proposal. Here I speak to the solution for those issues. A, industrial solar is defined in is not a defined SES size. Sprinkling the word industrial solar through the regulation serves no purpose other than show stop solar bias. Maysville Mason County should defend its local control by dropping the last sentence of 14.05, conflict of other regulations. Both facilities' footprint and project area footprint should be defined. Please reject stop solar effort to add burden and complexity to our local solar regulation that solves no demonstrated issue, while often forcing Joint Planning Commission to duplicate regulatory enforcement of more knowledgeable authorities. All these efforts can be replaced by simply stating, an SES shall comply with all applicable federal, state, and local laws, regulations, and permitting, and other requirements in applicable building, fire, electrical, and plumbing codes. SES should be allowed on agricultural zones. They provide an economic barrier to minimize the type of urban development that's taking over much of our rural area. They reduce the topsoil erosion and ag chem pollution, and they expand the pollinator habitats. 20 feet is an appropriate height restriction for ground-mounted SES. Setbacks should be simply measured from the outermost solar panel, 50 feet from non-participating property lines, 150 feet from any non-participating building permitted for full-time occupancy. Setback provisions should be able to be waived in writing by the adjacent property owner to whom the setback is applicable. Some will ask for 1,000 and 2,000 foot setbacks. If we could build a circular solar farm with 750 acres of generating capacity, a 1,000 foot setback would take another 537 acres of farmland. How can someone who wants to minimize solar footprint suggest this, unless they just want to stop solar? Ground-mounted SES shall be effectively screened from buildings licensed for permanent occupancy on neighboring non-participating properties. Section 14.09, safety design and installation should only have two requirements. All solar panels should be constructed with commercially available equipment. And two, an SES shall conform and applicable industry standards as used with all local, state, and federal regulations. An applicant should submit certification of design compliance that their solar panels manufacturers have obtained from Underwriters Laboratory, the DNV-GL, or equivalent third party. The rest of that section is a stop solar pretension to try to add cost. Section 14.10. Other applicable standards has several burdensome regulations that add cost with no value. Lighting and sewer. No reason is shown why solar should have any different regulations than the zone that it occupies. Noise, 50 decibel means 2 people cannot have a normal conversation, that's 60 decibels, at the perimeter of an SES. A lawnmower, which is 90 decibels, cannot be used to maintain perimeter fencing. That's not reasonable. Signage should simply say, a ground-mounted SES may include all signage as required by law to provide safety information, and other signage as may be allowed under the ordinance of the Maysville Mason County Land Use Management. You spend a lot of time writing a sign ordinance. Why make it different for us, for solar? Drop the topics that have already been registered with no value proven to justify the extra expense. The utility interconnection, the feeder line, and the other expenditure sections. These sections should be dropped completely, as each one adds significant costs and either solves no demonstrated value or the issue is not unique to solar. 14.10, operation and maintenance. .12, liability insurance. .15, environmental insurance. Conditional use regulations allow each SES to be to complement its locale and it should replace 14.16, 14.17, 14.18, and 14.13. Regulations must require a bond to assure complete decommissioning at the end of the SCS's life. The solar ordinance I suggest would best assure Mason County's economic and ecological future, and is a section in my exhibit. The Joint Planning Commission faces a decision. Will you support property owners' rights to use our land to build a brighter financial and ecological future for the entire county? Or will you veto our property rights to protect the view of a few? Thank you for your comments or for your attention. Because of time constraints, I've submitted a lot of this in writing. If you have questions, I'll try to answer them. If not, Mr. Jackson will go next.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Marshall?
Bill, I do have a question. You mentioned the several match pair comparisons.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Where did they come from? Where is that?
I've got them on my website. I've got at least 7, but they're from California and Connecticut. They're all across the country. And I'll be glad to send you them if you want them. I think that they're in, I've got a bound appendix that they're in. So, I mean, it's not magic or black voodoo. It's what's going on. And in fact, one of them's coming from Fleming County. The Kentucky Siting Board did a lot of...
Bill, closer to the microphone, please.
See if I don't fall over. The Kentucky Siting Board in Fleming County did a lot of research on that. And that was their decision also. So, I mean, it's not one-off stuff.
So they're available on the Fleming County website?
They're available on the Osceola Fleming County State Siting Board. It's in the State Siting Board's decision, but it's also available on solarformasoncounty.com. Anything else?
Bill, on the match pairs analysis, do you recall who prepared those works for?
I don't. I mean, it was real estate appraisers all across the country. So, I mean, it's been going on for 10 years, I think. Some of it can go back that far. So I don't think it's any one person.
But the work should cite the source, I'm sure.
It does.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Marshall? Okay. Our next speaker.
He's the first of our time.
You'll have to bring it down.
Bill's a big boy. Okay, I'm Paul Jackson. Going to fill the balance of our time. My wife and I, Laura, moved to Maysville in 1989, so I'm an outsider. I've only been here 30 years. But been from one end of the state to the other, worked at UPS for almost 40 years. And you know, we've chosen to make Maysville our home. And I'm not going to be as detailed as Bill because, you know, he's an engineer, and I was a manager at UPS for a long, long time. So deal with people, deal with problems, and try to solve it, and let you know what I see. Concerns I have, which everybody has. Everybody wants the best for the county. You know, the 2020 census shows we're down 2.4% population. Household income's down 10% below the state average. Children's poverty rate is above the state average. Our school performance is below the state average in all 4 areas they measure. The latest one they looked at was 2019, I believe, because of COVID last year. So our school system is declining. Although we fund it above the state average. So, you know, the concerns we have, or I have, and anybody here, if you're attracting new industry, those are trends that we need to stop and reverse. You know, and Bill mentioned, you know, when we look at what we lost Brownings, Emerson, Stewart Station, Killen, Carmoose is a gravel pit. versus producing the dust we used to have to send to the power plants, Technotrim, Federal Mogul. These are all industries that we've lost. Tobacco, we know what it is. And it's an industry that if you don't get a contract, you're out of business. And it's from year to year. So our large producers, they're in business this year. Next year they're out of business because they didn't get their contract. Dairy's gone, hemp didn't work out. Cattle is marginal. And I did looked at something in the late 80s, early 90s. The farmers' share of the beef dollar at the retail sale at the grocery store was 37 cents. And you know what it is now? It's 13. So if we look at the share that we get is reduced. So we start looking at cash grain obviously is a profitable business, but we don't have a ton of acres. You know, we got some, but we don't have a ton. So if you look at all of it, none of those match the solar's revenue. And the group of folks that I know here done a lot of work trying to replace what we've lost. Okay, it's not all gloom and doom. You got industrious people here, talented people here, can do anything. But we are where we are right now. Solar, all of us that signed up, we all went into this eyes wide open. We knew it was a lease for a 30 to 50 year period that is not going to destroy farmland, not going to get rid of farmland. It's going to take it out of production for 30 years, repurpose it, and then at the end of the lease, it comes right back. Okay, it's not like we're destroying it. And if you look at what the CRP program is, which is a federal program that takes agriculture out of production, they're trying to push that up to 25 million acres by 2022, I believe, or somewhere right in there. So they're actually looking to take land out of production to just put grass on it. You can roll hay off on it, but that's it. So we're not desperately short of farmland, or we wouldn't be taking it out of production. The one thing we are continuing to need more of is energy. And we need energy to do everything we do, and we need it from all sources. You know, I'm a Kentucky guy. I know what coal does for us, but there's only so much of it. So we've replaced coal with natural gas because it's cheaper. Then we're going from natural gas to renewables because basically they're free if we can make them work. And the power plants are getting much better at matching the renewable energies that comes in during the day, and then they have to have a baseline energy, which is your coal and your gas, and for night production. So I think it'll work and give us, supply us the energy we need going forward. And if we look at the tax revenues for the county, it's significant. You know, the pilot program is something that I'm sure all the folks from the energy companies can make sure everybody understands that it is revenue that comes to the county. The landowners, it's going to stabilize 50, 55 farms. It's going to hopefully keep that exodus from leaving the county so they can stay. And if you look at it, we've got vendors here, we got multiple companies that can actually build the facilities. They can put the posts in the ground, mount the panels, they can wire them up, they can maintain them, and they won't have to, right now they drive, if you talk to any of our major contractors, they're in the truck an hour to the job, work all day, an hour back. They go to Cincinnati, they go to Lexington, they go all around to maintain their workforce. This would be a 2.5 year situation where we could employ our folks right here, and they don't have to spend 12 hours on the road to work, they can spend 10 hours at work. So the infrastructure, there's not going to be any stress on sewer plant, water plant, things that we have to have. This is an industry that is stress-free, really. The message you want to send from Mason County, businesses communicate just like we communicate. If it's a business-friendly environment, if it's a progressive environment, they want to be here. Okay, if it's not, they don't want to be here. And if we look at where we were, where Maysville started, 200 years ago, And you look in the 40s, there was, 20-some thousand folks in the county, 24, 25,000, and we're down to 17 now. So we're on a little bit of a decline, and the concern is, are we sending the right message out? You know, are we the county of no, or are we the county that says, we're interested in what you want to do? This is a product that is beneficial for the whole region, and it's brand new money. It's not money that we're talking a factory over in Mount Sterling, we're going to give you a better deal so you'll come over here. This is brand new money. It's a brand new industry, brand new technology. It's something that I'm confident that would be money that would turn around more than once in the community. And I'll spend mine. You know, I'm pro solar and I've got a contract. But if I didn't have a contract, I'd feel the same way. It's brand new money. It will flip over 3, 4, 5 times. You know, when we were the #2 tobacco market in the world, that money rolled, and I'm sure you folks remember that because that was right in your heyday. So people here, they're hardworking, intelligent, good group of people that I feel like if we have this project, it will improve the quality of life for everybody. So the ordinance we're looking at, you know, there was I guess one that circulated in 2020 that was very similar to the state ordinance that would regulate this industry, and it needs to be. Nobody wants, you know, anything out there in the wild, wild west, but we need to regulate it. But, you know, we're trying to take an ordinance that was by design built to discourage an industry, and then we're trying to adapt it to an industry that I feel like is totally different and very worthwhile. And, you know, we're not destroying anything. It's the direction the country's going, and it would send a message that Mason County is open for business, and Mason County is a progressive town. And I'm sure most people know the old saying, you know, I've tried it with money and I've tried it without money. Having a little money is always better, and that's what this is going to do. So I don't know how much time we got left, but that's all I've got. If anybody's got any questions, again, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an expert, but I have been in business for decades, and I've seen communities from one end of the state to the other. Communities that get up and get going, they continue to go, and if we start going the wrong direction, it's really, really hard to stop. And I'm not saying this is everything we got to do, but this is a big part of sending the message, generating revenue, and continuing to attract business to this area. Because you know, my wife and I plan on staying here, and kids are here, and just because everybody's in the same boat here. But I feel like it's an industry that we can't say no to. So that's all I've got. Ms. Walters, have you got a question?
I don't have any questions for you.
Okay. All right. We can pass this up. All right.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And just for clarification, I see several people out in the audience checking their watches. We're keeping time up here. Generally, when a member of the commission is asking a question and the speaker is responding to the question, we're not counting that against the time that's allotted to the speaker. So it's entirely possible that presentation went beyond 20 minutes. If Citizens Voice of Mason County encounters the same situation, they'll be given extra time to answer questions as well. So that's how we're doing it.
And who would be our next speaker?
too loud?
No.
Turn it up or?
Get it up closer to you, if you would.
How's that? Is that good? Ready? Thank you, Mr. Larger, Mr. Clark, Chairman, Joint Planning Commission, Judge McNeil, Mayor Cardwell, and to everyone in the room and all the farmers. Good evening. My name is Jason Shepard. I'm the Executive Director for Citizens Voice in Mason County. And on behalf of the group, fellow citizens of the county, we do have some concerns, similar concerns. My goal tonight is hopefully to walk you through that process and highlight some of the major concerns that we have. There will be other individuals speaking throughout tonight's events and Thursday's events that may get to topics that I may not cover. Here we are today, November 16th, full of emotion and passion and love of the land of Mason County. And the question is, we hope to maintain that 20, 40 years from now. As you can see the board there, how do I make this? Sorry. We support solar. You might think we don't, but we do. Ground integrated rooftop, small scale ground mounted, but based on our understanding of what's going on, and probably because a lot of understanding, we currently don't want to support large scale mounted solar energy on prime agricultural grounds, specifically A1 and A2 in Mason County. The Hillsborough site, which off the internet was 1350, I guess it's 1268, 200 megawatt facility, is fairly large. There's studies out there and articles that show that there's a heat island effect that raises the temperature 3 to 4 degrees Celsius, about 6 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit. I drove up and met with a local up there who used to raise chickens and had a bunch of thermometers, and on one hot day, he had one by his house that measured 108, and he had 4 along the perimeter of his fence that was 30 to 50 feet from the solar panels, and it measured, his words, not mine, 112, 113, 113, 114.
Mr. Shepek, can you move your the mic a little closer to your mouth?
Sure.
Thank you.
So let's go back in time. So the timeline of events for Mason County was July of 2019, according to PVA records and advertisements, Cumberland Solar comes into the picture. And then in January of 2020, National Grid, Axion in April, Core Solar in May timeframe interjects in October of 2020. And then the associated public meeting that Axion spoke to earlier, and the Facebook pages, and the notice of intent, our case file with the PSC, and here we go today with the public hearing. So we got 3+ entities and 6 or 7 other ones sending information out amongst our fellow counties. How many more are coming? If you look at the Fleming Solar Project, I got a chance then to go to the June 5th picnic. And Mr. Kyle Cochran said they will excavate. 2/3 of the construction workers will be from out of the county, and they will sell the project once it's completed. That's Core Solar, that's not these 3. Here's the informational map at the meeting, and I agree with their logo that they do have an unusual way of doing business because there's not much information there at all. Here's the area for National Grid, fairly large and massive, presented at the public hearing in August, as well as interjects. And I'm a green guy. I work for a green company. I'm part of the green team where I work at. According to the Google Maps drawing this out on the Mason County and the acreage mentioned, we're at 24,000 plus. Now granted, they do mention about 40 to 50% of that would be converted, but still we're at 73% of the available agriculture ground in Mason County. And then historical Route 66 byway runs straight through the middle of it. And what about the historical site in Mason for the recreation park? My understanding based on this PVA record, it butts up right against it. I got a chance, because I didn't learn about this until about April 1st when a neighbor walked by and let me know the first time I met them that this was coming. So I followed along, and in August, or September 15th, I watched the Interjoint Committee at Frankfurt talk about large-scale solar and land use. From that I learned from Mr. Tom Fitzgerald, who's the author, or helped author, the model ordinance. And his key word, it is a model. The opportunities for the public involvement needs to be heard early and often. it is so essential in those communities. However, where this has not been happening, there's pretty significant controversy. I think we're all familiar with that this year. The developers seek to build large-scale solar, he went on to say, in a living environment, have not taken that fact into account, that the public needs to be heard. He also states that everyone should have the right to use the property, both property rights and adjoining property rights, and being impaired by someone else's decision, as such as a solar array. So we need to understand the scope of the plans and the principles, and we've got some insight based on the August meetings, but there's still a lot of questions. There's still a lot of things we want to know. So the public said it would be an afterthought. He also went on to say that local communities should adopt their own freestanding ordinance, or as part of the zoning ordinance, the local government can have siting board statutes and developers begin to look at approaching lands. But he also emphasized that before anything is leased or signed, this should happen. He also provided notice to the local fiscal court when they come into the community. I don't know if that happened. Again, early and often, lots of public engagement. There's 120 counties in the Commonwealth. He also commented that he would expect to see 120 different solar ordinances. He recommends conditional spirit in the ordinance, but it really is a community level decision. So he also went on to say if the community doesn't want it, then it shall not be. But if the community does, then it should be. He also addressed setbacks and addressed that the local community should also help determine what that is for each county. Dr. Allison Davis also spoke. He wrote an economic update plan in May of 2021. Comprehensive plan is her recommendation for the updates per preferred venue process that facilitate the use of planning discussions. She also stressed the importance of not prioritizing good ag land for solar and to prevent it from prime ag land. We all agree that our soils are need to be protected, and there's plenty of opportunities for all kinds of land in the state. So why the rush? You might have seen this article in the paper. Again, the bulk of Mason County, I think, found out around August. And they're coming in and extracting value. So hence the reason why Citizen Voice on July 2nd asked for a moratorium. It's not because we're truly against solar, we just want to participate in the conversation. We seem to be putting the cart in front of the horse. So the process should kind of go like a circular wheel, and we should all participate, come back and talk, delay, and deliberate. Come back and talk and deliberate. And from that conversation, I think a good ordinance possibly could be here for large-scale industrial solar. However, if there's consideration to permit this large-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems to be a merchant electric generation facility anywhere in Mason County, then there must be a thorough evaluation of the benefits and detriments of the comprehensive plan land use amendment, similar to what has been done in reference in unique uses of land. Everything should be carefully calculated under great microscopic research, thorough analysis, and in part, most of all, as I keep saying, public engagement. There are many complexities that we need to fully vet and understand. There's some significant impacts to the landscape and infrastructure. Government coffers. We continue to request to convey the comprehensive plan process if and how Mason County should accommodate industrial solar facilities. Such land use questions fall squarely on the purview of local government in this comprehensive plan, which is KRS 100. Yet, despite taking these opportunities to take a step back and go through that, here we are with the appropriateness of an industrial solar context comprehensive plan, which is timely under state law. A draft ordinance has now preventively been posted, and in response, our organization, as Mr. Marshall's organization, provided an ordinance as well. We spent time on it. Comprehensive plan review, LUMO review, resource council review, and statute review. We submitted this table to address all the different kinds of solar arrays out there referenced in the model ordinance. So we request again a 1/6 to 1 year moratorium to go through this so everyone can have a say. So why have we not had that? Why? Why? It's not that hard. 2, setbacks. We also made recommendations that because of lack of understanding that we want to maintain the Kentucky state statute, we want to have a voice. Again, I come back to 120 counties, 120 different ordinances. A was what's said at State in Frankfurt in September. The community needs to be involved. We all do. This is the Hillcrest site, and if I think that image is right, that's kind of what a setback is there in Ohio. They provide negative visual impact. Large setbacks essential to protecting neighborhood values. The University of Rhode Island in 2020 said that homes within a tenth of a mile declined by 7%. Here is our filing with Acciona. As I mentioned earlier, they're requesting 30, 50, and 100-foot setbacks. Setbacks are important. Again, I go back to Mr. Fitzgerald. The community needs to help develop that. Decommissioning, who's actually paying for it? The Hillcrest site decommissioning plan right now shows that it's going to cost $12.7 million. If you look at that based on a gross decommissioning cost based off megawatts, I have no other way to do it because I've not had the time to dive into it. But that comes out to $97,660 per megawatt. If you times that by the 250, 200, or 250 sizes, three of them, you're looking at $73 million for decommissioning. It's a lot of money. I hope we're accounting for it all. The Fleming Square, also too, the one thing that they've mentioned that they've got to work with the PJM, and they got to do what's called a feasibility study and an impact study. The one over in Fleming County, the feasibility study is going to be about $85.8 million. Some of that the project developers on the look forward, and then another one gets passed on probably through our rates. The system impact study, $45.5 million, and there's a lot to do with why the infrastructure bill probably got passed this week, I guess. I don't know that for a fact, but what about the environment? In 2016, a hailstorm went through Texas, 42 millimeter golf ball size hail, and 100% of the panels are replaced. Not everything got hit by hail, but those ones had microcracks, and microcracks is one of the things we have to watch out for with solar panels. These solar panels were certified for up to 25 millimeter hailstones. The largest recorded that we could find searching the internet was Kentucky 5-inch and 4-inch. What I did find in 2011, though, in Mason County, we had a 1.5-inch. There were 38.1 millimeter size hail, 42 in Texas, and that particular panel had 25 millimeter rating. Environmental runoff. Traveled up to Mount Auburn September 23rd, and there was a lot of water laying there. Fire, electrical fires, it's not uncommon. There's been fires in California, Ohio, a couple places in Ohio, one in Colorado. There was one in Australia this year, the big Tesla battery fire. I don't know if you saw that, but it burned for 4 days. Firefighters had to stay there and keep water flowing on the other battery banks. Tornado. In 2015, a tornado went through Desert California and did some damage. I've tried to find some more information on that, and I can't find what I found earlier, so I'm not going to say. But it was a 550 megawatt facility with 8.8 million cadmium telluride panels built by First Solar. Economic numbers being tossed around should be very insignificant. A thorough, comprehensive plan process by the county would allow due diligence, provide balance and sureties. I work as an engineer, and so one night, the night of June 15th, I was standing beside a chiller. A chiller is kind of like an inverter. It runs 24/7, makes a constant noise. So I pulled out this app, which we use at the plant, and recorded it. On the left there, it's about 68 to 72 decibels, and I walked a straight line strictly away from it until it kind of leveled out and stopped. And it hovered around 43 to 45. This was in the town of Augusta, Kentucky. Now, I've read that these inverters start around 85, so I had to walk further. I didn't do this once, I did it twice, I did it 3 times. And then I went back and measured my paces with a tape measure. I went about 870 to about 875 feet. In the Fleming Solar LLC project, in the filings, they said it's 85 decibels for the inverter. Solar works on cloudy days, so they say. You can go to LG and AKU, and you can stream live stream what's happening with solar power. So over this weekend, on the 12th and 13th, we all kind of know what the weather was like. It wasn't that great. It was kind of crummy. This should be a real nice bell-shaped curve. So on the 12th, we had more energy power generated than we did on the 13th. If you look at the past 7 days, we had one nice bell-shaped curve. So grid instability is a major concern to a lot of citizens. You can see what's going on in other parts of the country and the world. Back in September, I did the same thing. You can see there on a 7-day period, one bell-shaped curve. So 1 out of 7 days, your AC is going to work for sure. In closing, I'd like to say the majority of Maysville, Mason County residents want the following: fair and due process. Preferably a comprehensive plan to be updated to incorporate a solar ordinance. We want to collaborate. We want to do what's best for the country, the county, I'm sorry. These things take time. Grant us that time. As suggested by Mr. Tom Fitzgerald, residents determine setbacks and whether zoning practices are appropriate or need to be changed. He stressed and stressed community participation early and often. So let's rewind so we can. By following that process just mentioned, I think both participating and non-participating property rights will be protected in the best interest of everyone in the county. Also, direct and indirect liabilities will be addressed. Landlocked prevention for future generations to build somewhere else on a property that now become landlocked by will be done with an ordinance. This is the best way to provide property value protection as well. I just listed multiple reasons why a moratorium is necessary. These debates and further discussions are necessary. Not allowing these debates and discussions to further cultivate the current divide to go deeper and wider. I want to thank you for your time tonight and for listening to the community.
I've asked that you hold your applause. Mr. Sheffick, thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Sheffick? Who would be our next speaker?
I think this is when we have the public start commenting. I think those will be open to all the groups. Development.
Well, now have comments from the public. List here. First speaker will be Mr. Dave Clark. If you would come forward, please. We'll be given 3 minutes to state your what you have to say.
And all speakers, please ensure that you're standing close enough to the microphone so that we can hear you over the PA system.
Three companies are currently applying to build solar farms in the county.
A little closer, Mr. Clark, please.
These companies are all projecting the construction of 250 megawatt farms on a maximum of 7,000 acres. Osceola Energy is currently starting construction on a 180 megawatt farm in Fleming County. The siting board has issued an order to proceed with the project. Using the Fleming County siting board figures, for a 250 megawatt project, the estimated capital expenditure would be $253 million. They would have over 600 construction employees and 22 million construction payroll. This is for one project. We would have 3 projects for a total of $759 million in capital expenditures and $67 million in construction payroll. When Fleming County is added to the total impact, it's $949 million in capital expenditures and $85 million in construction payroll. The impact would be staggered due to government approvals. That would mean the economic impact of payroll could last about 5 years. These are mind-boggling figures. We can't let this project slip through our fingers. Tax revenues will be positively impacted if the projects are completed, contributing $700,000 a year in property tax. There may be a tangible tax on personal property, a pilot tax, which could bring in a tremendous amount of additional revenue. All our major manufacturing, except walls, is owned by outside sources and is one signature or one lease maturity away from leaving. Look at Technotrim, Federal Mobile, Crystal Tissue, Browning, Carnation, and DP&L. They're all gone. These energy companies are going to put roots down with big expenditures which will keep them here for years. They won't bring pollution or ask for tax incentives or create infrastructure problems. They want to spend nearly $1 billion on capital expenditures and $85 million in construction labor in our community and bring us renewable energy. As with most opportunities, this one is fleeting. If Mason County doesn't welcome these companies, the space on the lines will be consumed and we will no longer have the resource to attract the industry. Think about it. $1 billion infusion.
Okay, that's 3 minutes.
Do this for Mason County.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Can I have what you read from, please?
Yes, and if you have prepared remarks talking to the public speakers, please provide them to the stenographer so that she can use them for preparing the script for the public hearing, please.
I was handed 2 sheets and neither one was filled out. Does it matter which sheet I use first? I don't guess it does it?
For what?
The list of people to speak. I don't guess it matters which order, which sheet.
I didn't generate the list.
Okay. At this time, we'll have Scott Poe come and speak.
Also, speakers, when you get to the mic, please state your name and your address for the record.
Mr. Teagar, Mr. Clark, I asked for some accommodation. I cannot stand at the microphone for 3 minutes. I can either move it out of the stand and sit here or come up where Mr. Shepik was
Scott,
and speak leaning against that. Your pleasure, sir.
Do you want to use this walker and sit in it?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Scott Poe. My wife and I live at 6343 Key Pike. We're right in the middle of this. I wear green tonight to show solidarity with the folks that think if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I am very skeptical of the promises made, and I would like to be very outspoken in the fact that we do not take issue with solar or passive energy generation, but we take great deference to having it on prime farmland. My wife and I spent about 80 years of combined time with our community. We have 4 educated and employed children. My wife was a school teacher, a principal, an administrator. I was a police officer, a chief deputy at the jail, and a court officer. My biggest concern with industrial solar factory in Mason County is the collateral damage that it would be sure to use. And I would ask you, I'm not an engineer. I don't have a lot of facts and figures. I'm speaking from the heart to the board members, and I ask that you use common sense as I'm doing with the four main issues I have with industrial solar here. First is, I don't believe I have the right to tell anybody what to do with their land, but I don't think they have the right to invade my way of life either. We choose to live in a rural area so we can watch our pet deer herd, so we can watch wild turkeys, and that's the first big issue I have. Wildlife, despite what all the experts would say, common sense would tell us that these hurricane fences all the way around these properties are going to disrupt wildlife habitat. Number two is damage to our infrastructure by an estimated 300 or more semi-trucks that will be required to bring this material on site, not to mention tens of thousands of cubic yards of concrete. That's going to do significant damage to our county roads, bridges, and culverts. Number three, and maybe the most important, is the loss of property value. Mr. Shepard indicated a study that showed 7% loss in property value. I think our area would lose a much greater percentage. There's been estimates that I can't quote, but there have been estimates of 25 to 30% reduction in property value that are close to industrial solar factories.
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Figard. And thank you to the members.
Okay. At this time, we're going to take another recess for 5 minutes, and then when we come back, I'm going to have Leland Pollitt be our next speaker.
5 minutes, please.
5-minute recess.
Tim, suggestion? Tell who the next speaker, or the first person.
Way bigger.
Okay, Francis Sarver will come down to be ready to speak after Mr. Pollitt finishes. At this time, we'll have Leland Allen Pollitt present his views.
My name is Leland Allen Pollitt. I was born in Mason County, went to Maysville High School, Transylvania, and UK, and graduated a degree in mining engineering with an emphasis on geology. As you know, this area, geologically speaking, is a primary. We sit on what is known as the Cincinnati Arch, which runs from Michigan through Maysville, Lexington, Louisville, Nashville, and Knoxville. And part of that, we're right on the top of this thing called the dome, and that's partially what's responsible for our productive soil. My big concern here is what is known as the High River Shales. I don't know if any of you ever heard of but basically it's any of this shaly limestone that's in this area. It has radioactivity from uranium that was put in there billions of years ago and now decays, and we get radon. And believe you me, we've had plenty of radon around here. I can demonstrate for you if I sit turn this thing on. Can y'all hear that? That reading right now is about 6 rads. Now, a rad is 1 millionth of a rem, and a rem is equivalent to about 4 doses that you get from your medical procedures every year. So, anything we do here in opening up the soil.
Sir, we can't hear you. Please stay close to the microphone.
I say anything we do here to open up the soil, stripping the topsoil and so on, is going to allow more radiation to enter into our atmosphere. Topsoil is a buffer. It helps seal the radiation in the rock, and as a consequence, we're talking about major construction here. And they're going to strip the topsoil, so they're going to allow a lot of radiation to emit. It's going to get in our water, in our air, and so on. Now, the other problem that we've got here, as I said, we've got somebody to handle this when you start stripping the topsoil and piling it up. And it's going to be a long time before ever the topsoil gets back to the normal depth that it is now. Because they're, as I understand, they're going to put back minimal topsoil. So that is a problem to me. That has to be considered in any ordinance. The other thing that I wanted to speak to tonight was the fact that what is known as the National Historic Preservation Act.
That's 3 minutes.
I've been there and done that.
Excuse, that's 3 minutes.
That's 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'll have to come back and talk to you about that.
Thank you, Mr. Pollard. Let's hold the applause so everybody will get an opportunity to speak, please. Francis Sarver, and the next speaker after that will be Martha Boyd.
Please, the speakers, please insist on, we insist that you say your name and your address, even though Tim says your name, please.
Okay, my name is Fran Sarver. I live at 311 Market Street in Maysville. I'm a resident of Mason County. It's my ancestral home. It dates back to the founding of Maysville and 6 generations before me. When my husband and I were deciding where to raise our daughter, we could have lived anywhere due to the remote nature of our work. We chose this area because of our deep love for the land and the people that live here. We intend to remain here, and we are fully committed to this place. Solar corporations are hoping to replace tens of thousands of productive farmland with solar energy to be generated only 2/3 of the year at best in Mason County. I have statistics to explain this. Mason County gets precipitation 34% of the year. We have 185 sunny days, 20 less than the average. This begs the question, why would anyone choose Mason County for an industrial solar site? I realize it may be for proximity to the grid, but it's definitely not for the amount of sunlight we receive. I'm supportive of solar solutions in sensible locations, but large-scale solar on farmland will require a flattened landscape, along with significant changes to our natural topography, drainage systems, fertile topsoil, plus ground cover removal, which will cause erosion. Again, why are solar companies so interested in Mason County when it will require significant effort for below average energy yield? What is the motivation? It is in contrast to sell green energy credits to Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, and others. Do you think Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg would like to live next to a 10,000-acre field full of solar panels? No, they would rather you live next to it. You can rationalize all sorts of reasons for wanting solar development on viable farmland, but it's essentially because the wealthiest people don't want to spoil their view, erode their land, or contaminate their own water sources. Follow the money and you will find answers. This is why our community is being heavily courted for corporate solar production when we don't have the statistics to justify it. Mason County's eternal wealth is in its soil. It cannot be replicated in a lab or made in a faraway factory like the solar panels that may sit atop it. A reliable source told me that a soil sample was taken from Mill Creek in Maze Lake to the 1933 World's Fair in Chicago to compete against soil samples from all over the world. Do you know that Mason County soil won the top prize for soil quality? Besides the exceptional quality of our soil, there may be undiscovered artifacts buried in these same locations where these visiting developers would like to excavate. These artifacts must be carefully recovered prior to any construction. Is there a plan for this? The historic preservation section of the proposed ordinance is lightweight and appears to address property only within a designated historic district. I suggest to you that Mason County itself is a historic district. One final but important concern. Planning board members and elected officials who may stand to profit from solar leases or might have immediate family members who may profit, they should recuse themselves from this planning process because of the clear conflict of interest.
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. At this time, we'll have Martha Boyd come to speak, and after Martha, we'll have Barry Fields. Barry would be ready to come and speak.
Hear me or not? Can you hear me?
Yeah, not very well.
I'm Martha Boyd. I live at 5035 Main Street, Maze Lake. This is the position statement for the Concerned Citizens Group. Why the rush? Since 2019, out-of-state solar developers have quietly secured land options and aggressively lobbied our local officials, maybe behind closed doors, to build industrial-scale solar facilities on over 9,000 acres of our precious farmland here in Mason County. We, the tax-paying citizens, have been given no opportunity to answer the questions of whether industrial solar is even appropriate in Mason County, and if so, how best to regulate to protect our physical strength, environmental resources, and our quality of life today and in the future. With so much at stake for our community, one must ask of the solar developers, why the rush? Why has the community not been involved in public forums to learn more about these installations and how they will impact all of us? We were not aware of all this until mid-March and April of 2021. The solar panels are made of heavy toxic metals with a shelf life of roughly 20 years. As demonstrated at other locations with utility-scale solar installations, they will displace thousands of acres of our finite rural landscape, while destabilizing property values, creating only a few permanent jobs for local residents, posing numerous financial liabilities for our municipal government entities and our coffers, generating significant water runoff, compromising the carbon sink of our natural green spaces, and eroding the factory floor of our food industry here in Mason County. All so foreign developers can generate green energy credits here, but sell them elsewhere out of the county for corporate profit and consumption. Is this a fair deal for all Mason Countyans? The answer must be calculated carefully and under the microscope of objective research analysis and public engagement. An update to our comprehensive plan is a venue for such deliberations. Maysville, Mason County deserves better. We respectfully submit and request that you issue a one-year moratorium and convene the comprehensive plan process so that we can have a say. Everyone's future depends on this. Citizens' Voice is not against solar or renewable energy, but believe that solar companies should not be granted conditional permits to construct construct large-scale industrial social facilities on our precious land and productive agricultural farmland.
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you, Martha.
Your notes, please.
Yeah, her notes. Should need your notes.
You won't be ready.
At this time, we'll have Barry Field speak, and after Barry, we'll have Lynn Cheney speak.
Good evening, and thank you for holding this hearing. My name is Barry Fields. My wife and I live at 5095 5095 Raymond Road, Mayslick, Kentucky. We've lived there for 31 years. While we are not against solar energy per se, we are against industrial solar facilities on agricultural land. I know this is all about money. I can't say I blame those who have signed leases in hopes of future income for doing nothing. But that doesn't make it the right thing to do for our county. Your decision should not be about a few selected landowners getting a future income stream, but about the bigger picture of the future of Mason County. After all, that's what zoning is all about. The solar companies and their advocates say that the land will be restored to its original condition after decommissioning. I can't find examples of where that has ever been done, and some ag experts question whether it really can be or will be done. But the crux of your decision lies in the fact that you must be guided by the comprehensive plan. Several of you were on the JPC in 2016 when this plan was amended. I personally attended those workshop meetings, so I know how much work and thought went into this document. And I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from that plan. From page 57, under goals for rural and agricultural areas, item 5, establish a program for maintaining green space and scenic values throughout the county. Item 6, develop programs to support the retention of productive farmland. From page 119, under agricultural mission statement, goals and objectives, it says, develop a program for land use management and retention of valuable farmland. And there are several other related preservation references in this plan, which I outline in my supported written statement and affidavit. So for the life of me, I cannot see how industrial solar plants can be permitted in the county's agricultural zones and be consistent with this plan. I understand that you have been advised that the Kentucky statutes may provide for exceptions to the plan if extenuating circumstances exist. That sounds like a loophole to me, and I think if you have to use a loophole, you're looking for an excuse to bypass the intent of that plan. Whatever decisions you make, one side or the other is going to disagree with you. So just do the right thing. Industrial solar facilities do not belong and should not be permitted in the county's agricultural zones, even conditionally. They are industrial and should only be allowed in the industrial zone. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. At this time, we'll have Lynn Cheney come and speak. And our next person after her will be Jennifer Gleason. Please step close to the microphone.
Hi, I'm Lynn Cheney. I live in Mayslick, Kentucky. To large-scale solar energy systems, especially to locating it on prime farmland, I say no. Our civilization is based on agriculture. Therefore, farmland must be protected and nurtured. Since cultivation soils have lost 50 to 70% of the organic matter to the atmosphere, carbon makes up a little over half of organic matter. Average farm soils, or maybe it's just dirt, range from 2 to 4 to 6% organic matter. Have soils in Mason County lost this organic matter? Think of the color of water after a little rainfall. Is it clear or more like cream coffee? How deep do roots grow under pastures, crops, yards, anywhere? 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 might be good. How often do we have 100-year floods? How quickly does everything dry again? Putting carbon back in soil can solve 2 problems. First, reduce atmospheric carbon, And second, by sinking carbon into the soil, it will increase organic matter of the soil and reduce the expensive costs of agriculture production. Soils that are low in organic matter usually have a history of plowing and cultivations. Farmers have difficulty raising the crops. Then came the Green Revolution. After World War II, inorganic fertilizers and pesticides provided a boost to achieve much needed yields. Fertilizers and pesticides did not put organic matter back into the soil. These inputs are getting even more expensive in terms of dollars and carbon emissions. It's leading farmers to grab every kind of buyout that comes along. Can't really blame them. Yields challenge paying for the inputs needed for the harvest. Soils that are high in organic matter that can mimic nature by having proper biology include important microbes such as fungi, bacteria, protozoa, nematodes, micro and macroarthropods. They can utilize natural functions that help cycle nutrients to crops, so no fertilizer is needed. They maintain soil structure with air chambers. That allows the earth to actually absorb water when it rains. This reduces flooding, recharges the ground, and restores water cycling. High organic matter allows soil to slowly release moisture back to plants during dry periods. That adds resiliency. But we must have higher organic matter to do that, and there are ways to do it. Proper and complete soil biology protects plants and insects from pests and diseases. No insecticides needed. Having higher fungi and bacteria ratios is the criteria most associated with high yields, not fertilizer. By sinking soil and carbon in the soil, we solve two problems. We reduce the atmospheric carbon and repair soils to function more profitably and sustainably.
Thank you, Lynn Cheney. And our next person is Jennifer Gleason. And after Jennifer Gleason, we'll have Jim Lally. Hold the mic up a little closer. It's going to be closer.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Gleason, and I live at 434 Dividing Ridge Road, found all of it, but that is in Mason County. I'm a Mason County resident. I moved to Mason County in 1992 to raise my family, grow my business, and cultivate my dream of being a farmer and maker of fine local sundries. I use a solar cooker. I collect rainwater for my soap and steward my land with organic, non-GMO, nature-conscious practices. I value my neighbors and their multi-generational wisdom, which has helped me refine my own craft. I love the sun. I rely on the sun. My contract as a farmer, as a human being, is with the sun. All my daily rituals begin and end with the sun. This contract is free, benevolent, and dependable. We, the inheritors and stewards of Mason County, Kentucky, some of the richest land in the world, have a responsibility to this contract. This is a soul contract. I stand before you today to remind all of us of this fundamental contract. The promise of nature, the promise of the sun, has been upheld since the beginning of existence. Today, as we contemplate the contracts proposed by the industrious solar companies, we must also recognize how it relates to our contract with nature, with our land, and the effects it will have on the relationship between our earth, our sun, and our community. We honor our most elemental contracts by making choices and taking actions that are respectful of nature. Health, well-being, and heart-based relationships are the result of that respect. However, when we lose faith in nature's promise, the contracts of men will show up to fill the gap of uncertainty and doubt. Beware of those contracts. I have faith that the sun will feed my family and my community for generations. How can any of us have faith in the solar industry's weak promise of a mere 30-year benefit? Considering the technological advancements of the last 30 years, obsolescence is certain.
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer Gleason. At this time, we'll have Jim Lally come and speak, and Sarah Winter.
I don't have written statement.
If you would be ready to speak when Mr. Lally is finished.
I'm Jim Lally, and I live at the same address as the previous speaker, 434 Dividing Ridge Road near Sardis. I want to thank all the members of the commission for their work, all the work they put in, hours and hours, into considering this issue. In their full-page newspaper ad, the moneyed interest of this industrial energy complex claimed they had decommissioning agreements written into their leases. But they give no details, none. The American Planning Association, the largest organization of professional planners in the U.S., states that cash escrow is the most reliable security for a local government. Unless these companies are willing to put the money up front to fix their mess and restore the land to its original condition, the citizens of Mason County may be left with an industrial wasteland of thousands of acres. Commissioners, I cannot stress enough how much your work has to look at the decommissioning plans that these companies have. My other point is that people in Mason County are against this project. I can assure you that this is not the view of a few. In organizing, in putting in countless hours of making our fellow citizens aware of what is proposed, we have shown our deep, abiding respect for the natural character of this land. We are not receiving any monetary rewards from leases or promotions from the industrial energy complex. It is the love of the land, some of the best farmland in the state of Kentucky, as other speakers have shown. Commissioners, don't fall for the glittering promises made by the moneyed interest that we are in for a gold rush. Remember, commissioners, most gold rushes quickly turn into ghost towns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nally. We have time for one more speaker, Sarah Winter. She had the lead. Okay, Chris Osgood. This will be our final speaker this evening.
Thanks everyone for letting me speak. My name's Chris Osgood. I live at 5239 Weaver Road.
Can you put that up closer to you, please?
Yeah. Is that better? All right. I live at 5239 Weaver Road. I am a 25-year veteran as an EHS manager. Last 13 years I've spent in the chemical industry. Good plans always cover the negativity. We've only heard positive. There's been nothing to discuss about potential hazardous waste that could be generated from lead and cadmium within the solar panels. There has been no discussion about the requirements for stormwater runoff permitting, not only for construction, but for the industrial use. Good plans cover the negative and the positive. I know firsthand, I've developed 2 very strong sustainability programs. And as part of those, you have to know where you're gaining your benefits and where your negatives are hurting you. Without that, this program will struggle and it will hurt Mason County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osgood. I'd like to ask the commission at this time if they wish to have the following people come back, or if they wish to proceed with the few that are left. 3, 6, 7. We have 10 names left that haven't spoken yet. So whatever would be the will of the commission, if somebody wants to make a motion, or if you want to dismiss, and then we can come back and resume Thursday evening.
Specifically, if you do not want to have any more speakers, your option will be to recess the public hearing until 5:30 Thursday, November 18th, here in the Field Auditorium.
I would recommend if you're so inclined to go ahead and hear.
I would recommend if you're so inclined to go ahead and hear from the people who are here who have signed up to speak.
Do I have a motion?
Yeah, can you speak into a microphone?
I said I would make a motion that we go ahead and hear from the remaining speakers.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Zandy Stewart, a second by Tom Cove.
May we have discussion?
Yeah, sure.
I would ask, we are limiting, for those that signed up tonight, someone who had expectations of being here Thursday night.
We don't know who's planning on coming on Thursday night to speak.
Nor do I.
And I think if someone has signed up to speak tonight, it's 8 o'clock. I don't want to be here any longer than I have to, but at the same time, if they're here and they've signed up to speak, go ahead and let them speak.
I would agree with that.
Okay, I need a vote on the, to go ahead and continue the meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We will continue. This time, I'd like for David Bashaw to come forward, and for Don, I don't know what that is. Solex. Anyway, he can wait in line, but this time, if David Bashaw would come to speak.
I don't think, can you hear me? Okay. Hi y'all, I'm David Bashaw, and I haven't got any written speech or anything else. I just moved back from...
I'm sorry, you're going to have to talk into the microphone because I can't hear you.
I just moved back from Las Vegas, Nevada. I grew up here. Zandy Stewart is the one who got me through geometry, Ms. Mitchell. Thank you. But the thing is COVID retired me last year in Nevada. Nevada, the last 5 years, is doing exactly what you're doing right now. Fighting solar, going back and forth. Well, Nevada Power spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to knock out solar. There's one solar farm outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. I saw y'all gasp when you heard 660,000 panels. This solar farm outside of Las Vegas is over 1 million panels. And I drove by it many times personally. I never heard a thing. That's the question I had is I don't understand that. Your setbacks from pictures the one gentleman showed, I would adjust those, is my opinion. But as soon as we got the farms, then we got rooftop. And friends of mine invested the money in the rooftop. Their air conditioning bills went down from $400 a month to $400. They were selling power back to Nevada Power. Mr. Clark pointed out the numbers very well earlier. I was very happy to see Maysville survive BP&L closing. You're looking at an economic boost that don't come around too often. We'll drive across the river and look at Aberdeen. Oh my God, there's nothing there. Reconsider, please. The farmers, the last thing I want to do is tell these farmers who have paid their mortgage all their lives and struggled, the hardest working people I've ever met, and struggled, that they can't get a boost. Now that the land that they paid their mortgages on for all these years, they're actually might make something. So consider it really hard. And if you think Bryant Manufacturing is coming back or something, good luck. Thank you all.
David, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said Nevada Power was trying to knock out solar?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you mean by that?
Okay, well, let's put it this way. Here's Nevada Power. I'll give you some numbers. MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada, they own 8 casinos there. They had to pay Nevada Power $87 million to get off of Nevada Power. That was, Nevada Power is privately owned by Warren Buffett. And they are guaranteed a 9% a year income. Guaranteed. So Nevada Power would raise their rates to make sure they can hit their guarantees. Well, Wynn Hotel, one hotel, they had to pay $15 million to get off of Nevada Power and go on to solar. So, if you look at it, it's the money. They're talking about solar companies coming in here with all their money. I'm sorry, but who's behind the other side? I'm seeing a whole lot of ads and hearing a whole lot of ads on the radio, so someone's paying for it. And it may be KU, I don't know. But I was saying, I went through this for 5 years, and they fought back and forth about rooftop, about the solar farms and everything else. It was a battle, and the millions and millions of dollars that was spent. And guess what now? Solar's going everywhere. They passed it, and it's booming. The 9th largest convention center in the country, Mandalay Bay's convention center, they spent $5 million to put solar on their roof. They run the air conditioner 24 hours a day in August, the hottest month of the year in Las Vegas, with the freight doors open. Because they can. They generate their own. The convention center pays you have to pay, to turn the air conditioner on at the Las Vegas Convention Center, you have to pay $10,000 a day. But Mandalay Bay has gotten all these other conventions over because they have the air on 24 hours a day. Because they put $5 million on the roof. Why can't we do that to the field house? And cut the costs of
Annette, did he answer your question? Okay, let's move on.
Thank you all.
Thank you, David. At this time, okay, we'll have Don. How do you spell your last name?
You like this? Solars?
S-O-L-A-R-Z?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You ready?
Go ahead.
I am Don Solars from 5101 Shallows Lane, Mayslick. Commissioners, no industrial solar should be allowed on prime farmland. State statute of 1,000-foot setback on adjoining property lines should be upheld.
Get closer or something.
Each part of this county has its own sole value and purpose. Commissioners, do you believe that the comprehensive plan serves the whole of the county equally and fairly? Local officials, do you believe the comprehensive plan serves the whole of the county equally and fairly? If industrial solar comes into the county without going through the comprehensive plan, for those of you who are planning on running for office, we will be at your campaign stops and ask you why. If the solar ordinance does not properly address bonding protection, insurance protection, environmental protection, and so on, we will ask you why. We will let the voters there know the risk you took and what it could cost them. Congress just passed a bill during COVID. The kids were in school during COVID. We're in a public hearing during COVID. Don't tell me you could not have updated the comprehensive plan during COVID. You still can. There is Zoom, emails, conference calls, masks, and social distancing. We have yet to hear from some of the solar companies. One is Cumberland Solar, who has signed the lease. Ethic codes could come into play on this one. Think court. It is our absolute right to a fair process. Matthew 6:24. If Citizens United is true, maybe Amazon will get to stand before God and be asked who did they truly serve? Their CEO, shareholders, wealthy landowners, China, or huge profits. Commissioners, don't you be selling off part of our county's soul for crumbs. If there is no cap on the number of solar companies coming into this county, many jobs here will be lost. Guys at the Mays Lick Mill, I will fight like hell for you. We should be taking care of our own. Mankind can produce things. Only God can create a seed for its home in God's good soil, and the beauty of the land can nurture that soil. I thank you guys for what you did. I remember in grammar school they give you gold stars on your paper. I would give you so many gold stars for what you guys are enduring. I love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soder.
I need your notes.
Yes. At this time, we'll have Mary Clark Palmer come forth, and Peggy Parker will be waiting in line, please.
Can you say that he was talking? Can you repeat that?
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll have Mary Clark Palmer to come forth, and Peggy Parker will be after her.
Is this loud enough? My name is Mary Clark Palmer. I live at 6463 Kentucky Highway 419 in Mays Lick, Kentucky. Hello. As a resident and partner in land ownership in this community, I come in front of the commissioners today to explain why I believe it's a landowner's right to control and derive income on privately owned land. Farmland is a part of the American dream. When the great forefathers of this land settled here, one of the most important things was land ownership, and it's still true today. My family settled in this county more than 150 years ago. 5 generations of Clark, born and grown up on our farm. We were afforded property rights by the U.S. Constitution, as well as other federal and state laws. According to those laws and the spirit of those laws, we have a direct right to possess, control, derive income, and dispose of our land. We pay taxes on our land, and we generate income is our personal right, as long as we do not break any laws, and as long as we do not generate unsafe conditions for our neighbors. Solar farming and solar land leasing does 2 things. It allows us to continue to own and control our land. It allows us to derive income, as is our right under the laws of Kentucky and this great nation. As of 2020, nearly half of the Fortune 500 companies in this great nation have made public their interest in renewable energy. In the last 5 years, I've watched my company, and more importantly, our customers, become more and more focused on environmental compliance, carbon footprint, and sustainability. Environmental social governance, the hot topic in executive boardrooms, considers a new request from investors instead of balance sheets. They're increasingly considering the environment and how it correlates to the company's impact on the world. Think conservation, waste reduction, emissions. In 2021, investors take special interest in companies doing more to protect the planet. According to Harvard Law School Forum on Corporate Governance, in the 2020 decade, the #1 focus will be climate change and the path to net zero. I ask our commissioners to think strategically. How will we win in the next decade and the decades to come? It's time for a win for Mason County. What is the result? More local jobs, more spend, more county income. Yes, solar will take away 10% or less of the rural or agricultural land for a period of time, and maybe panels aren't beautiful, but they're safe, clean, and most importantly, they give us a strategic option to keep our county financially strong while allowing landowners to continue to own and control their land.
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Palmer. At this time, we'll have Peggy Parker come to speak, and Joe Koch, I believe, will be speaking afterwards.
Visual aid. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Peggy Parker, and I live at 5047 Main Street in Mays Lake.
5047 what?
Main Street.
Just wait until you get the mic finished.
Well, what do they do to it?
Oh, come on.
Tim, you get working and I'll work.
Push this down. Should think up.
I was doing that.
And it's wore out. Yep, it's shot. Just take it off.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
Just like if you were
Hold it
singing.
and do it.
Just like you, yeah, like here.
Okay, like I'm gonna sing. Okay. You're not gonna want to hear that. Thank you for this opportunity of allowing me to speak. My name is Peggy Parker, and I live at 5047 Main Street in Mays Lake. And as a farmer, I drive several routes multiple times a day in the Mays Lake area. Latham Pike, Parker Lane, 324 out towards Helena, and back to Raymond Road and through downtown Mays Lake. And if any of you were behind me when I was driving my tractor, pulling the baler, a load of hay, or anything too wide for one lane, I apologize. My biggest tractor's top speed is 18.3 miles per hour downhill. This is agricultural land. We have agricultural equipment. The one-lane county roads are actually the easiest. People have slightly more patience on those roads because there's no possibility of passing. On Parker Lane, drainage is so poor that even the most experienced drivers can end up in a ditch. 324 is the most difficult. Years ago, one of our tractors was T-boned by an impatient driver trying to pass. That has happened to me barely. I've survived many, many, many times. 324 is not a straight road. There aren't too many places to pass. This is agricultural land, and our equipment keeps getting bigger. As farmers, we know the timing, when the corn planters are likely to run down the road, when the combines are about to start, and on whose farm. When Southern States' giant sprayer is likely to go through the area, sale days at the stockyards, when the school bus runs, and even when hay or tobacco or a semi loaded with corn or beans is about to run down the road. Today, Mays Lake's narrow roads are already seriously challenged with agricultural and non-agricultural traffic, including the horse and buggies, bobcats, the very wide buildings that the Amish are having halt, and the endless parade of delivery trucks. Our continued ability to move down the road with our equipment is vital to keeping our farming going. If our slow-moving agricultural area is zoned industrial, every farmer's safety, and even the safety of impatient drivers, will be at an even greater risk as they are now. As members of planning and zoning, I encourage you to come out to Mays Lake and drive the roads and imagine the potential hazardous effects of adding anywhere from 200 to 500 workers and what they would do to the Mays Lake roads. I think we can all agree that public safety is the highest priority. Well, these non-local companies commit to maintaining the highest standards of public safety in all areas of endeavors for the length of the project. And if necessary, will Mason County also commit to pay for whatever's left to maintain that safety?
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you, Peggy.
Your names, please.
Would you like the poster too?
And at this time we'll have Joe.
Thanks, though.
Is it Cole or Cobb?
Cook.
Cook. Well, I messed it up. I'm sorry.
Not the first time it's ever happened.
Yeah.
And we'll have Lorelei Wesley be ready to speak after he's finished.
Good evening. My name is Joe Cook. My family and I have lived in Mays Lake since 2017, 6493 Kentucky Highway 419. We moved to this area for gainful employment. We chose to live in the Mays Lake area for its beauty, the opportunity to have multiple acre slice of heaven, and like several individuals in Mason County, we have made one of the largest investments of our lives here, homeownership. I want to thank the Mason County Joint Planning Commission members for serving in your capacity to review the types of issues we are speaking about this evening, and for potentially recommending a denial of industrial solar, or for making comprehensive plan recommendations for ordinance of solar energy systems to our elected legislative officials to approve or deny for both City of Maysville and Mason County. I'm not anti-solar for personal use on your home or property. I do feel strongly that industrial solar and or merchant solar generating facilities should not be allowed in any area of Mason County. Industrial solar may destroy the land for multiple generations by placing toxic materials and other non-environmentally friendly materials on prime agricultural land, which may cause water runoff, erosion, or other environmental concerns, including a potential negative impact on wildlife. Furthermore, due to our area being geographically located in a low peak sun hour per day location, these massive solar, industrial solar, or merchant solar generating facilities, in my opinion, will only produce minimal power compared to other types of power generation, which may not even be used locally. It also may burden the local taxpayers for decommissioning these massive industrial scale solar power plants, and in my opinion will certainly have a negative impact on other local residents' property values, which again is one of the biggest investments people make in their lives. Yes, there are studies that support both sides of this argument, studies that state no negative impact on adjoining property values, and studies that predict a 6 to 30% decline of property values. But in my opinion, anyone who has seen pictures of massive sea of solar panels that are right next to adjoining single home owners' property and think that there will not be a negative impact on the adjoining property, I'd like to talk to you about purchasing 2 bridges after this meeting. If these massive industrial solar or merchant solar generating facilities are allowed to operate in Mason County, our local ordinances should follow the current KRS statutes for merchant electric generating facilities as I understand it, with setbacks of a minimum 1,000 feet from an adjoining property line and minimum 2,000 feet setback from residential neighborhoods, schools, hospital, or nursing home facilities. Those are already in the law for good reasons. No exception should be made. And if the JPC solar entities and local landowners who lease their property feel there will not be a negative impact on adjoining and other local properties, then a property value guarantee to adjacent other locally affected property owners should be required of the merchant solar entity to operate, and landowners who lease their property to those entities. To argue for not having property value guarantees is a direct admission to the contrary. In closing, one of the pro-solar advertisements in the local paper, there was a statement, "Why do you want to stop us from making decisions about our land that helps us sustain the rural lifestyle we love?" The reason for me is because it will have a negative impact on my home and my land value. I have a small property compared to the large landowners who want solar. That doesn't diminish my rights to voice my opinion.
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Any questions?
At this time, we'll have Lorelei Wesley and then Steve Pate, if you will.
I want to know if I can have the poster, because that's awesome. So, okay. My name is Lorelei Wesley. I'm not from here. I'm from Arizona. And
Closer to the mic, please.
Arizona is a state that's known for the sun. Okay? Lived there for 20 plus years. Before that, my dad was a uranium miner in Jeffrey City, Wyoming, population of 500 people. You want to know what happens in Jeffrey City, Wyoming when your power goes out? Your toilet water freezes and your children are all snuggled in one bed, shaking and begging for the sun to come up. That's what happens when you lose power in cold climates. So as soon as I could, I ran away and I went to Arizona. Okay? I love the sun. I got 4 layers of shirts on right now. I miss it desperately. But I married a man. Wonderful man. Dream man. Married him here. You made my wedding cake. Okay? Married a man. Was brought here. You want to know why? One day he started getting rashes. He's from Montana. We take him to the doctor, and the doctor goes, oh, yeah, you guys can't live here. What do you mean we can't live here? He's allergic to the sun. It's this really weird thing, but in Arizona, our sun is so intense that you can become allergic to it. So I have to leave my dream place, but it's worth it. I got my dream man. Okay? So let me just go ahead and look at this. I finally fall in love with this place, find God in Mays Lick. I run my hounds out there and I spend hours a day barefoot in that grass. I get to go ahead and watch the wiggly worms, and I get to predict what the winter is. And I find out, because I got lots of letters after my name too, that I don't know anything. Farmers have to be chemists. They have to pay attention to the weather and condensation and the barometric pressure, when to plant this and when to take that out. I don't know any of that stuff, nor do you guys. Terrific, beautiful education. I got one. Still got plenty of student loans. I'm dense. I don't know what I don't know. There's something called unintended consequences. Okay? You're a good man. You did an awful, terrific job. That was amazing. Do you know we all decided we didn't care if you went over because it was amazing. I want to change my mind. I paid for my mom's own solar panels on my mom's house. Guess what? She has running brownouts and blackouts. It's not dependable. I love solar. I carry one in my emergency kit in my car. I charge my cell phone so I can play video games camping. But I can't run my house. And I got a quarter side of beef in my freezer that's supposed to last me all winter. And you know the prices, they're going through the roof. We've got inflation. We've got all this insane food shortages. We can grow food right here underneath our feet. And you want to give it away? So Spain, which recognizes, according to the EU, that there will be devalue to our property, literally has a law where they have enacted that they will pay you the difference. So Spain, being part of the EU, is aware of that. And they're coming in here and saying that there's not going to affect property values?
3 minutes.
I'd ask more questions. I think you guys are rushing it. We need more time.
Thank you, Lorna. Wesley. Miss Wesley. Miss Wesley. Please tie your shoe. I was afraid you'd
I'm shaking. May I have your poster of Mays Lake?
At this time, we'll have Steve Page, and after Steve, we'll have Bob Trivy come and speak.
Hello, my name is Steve Page, and I moved here from California. I live at 41 West 2nd Street, Maysville, Kentucky. And our farm is at 4326 Johnson Lane.
Steve, a little closer to the mic, please.
No. Our farm is at 4326 Johnson Lane, Mays Lick. I love Maysville, Mays Lick, and Mason County, and wouldn't change it for the worse. I am quite familiar with solar farms, as I was a camp commander for the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. I can't even read my own writing on a phone. Okay, it doesn't work like it's sold to the public. The benefits don't outweigh the risk and waste production. Mostly I just have questions, all right? Who's spearheading and funding all the solar projects? Where's the money coming from? Who are the investors? Who's the investment groups behind it? Where is the equipment and panels made? Where are they made? What is the benefit to the common public? Is it subsidized? Is it federally subsidized? Does it pay for itself? How is it going to affect taxpayers' costs? What is the need here in Kentucky for solar production when it doesn't even work in California? What makes you think, let's see, what is it? Emissions and waste products. what are we going to do with that? All right, I'm real quick, just a couple more questions. How are the human and health and property value affected if you live next to a solar farm? Have you lived next to a solar farm? I'm just asking the people that are there. And that's it. I just had questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. At this time, we'll have Bob Trivy come to speak. And after Bob Trivy, we'll have Mike Miller come to speak, please.
I wasn't the first one that got to work. Where you been? Name's Bob Tripp. I live at 5342 Latham Pike in Mayfield, Kentucky. I want to thank you all for your service. As often it goes unappreciated, but let me tell you something. My wife and I fully appreciate and are thankful for this opportunity to speak.
Sir, can you stand a little closer to the mic, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Or I'll try anyway. I'll speak tonight on the topic of balance. It's a relatively easy concept to achieve, a relatively easy concept, but difficult to achieve. Balance in our personal lives, while sometimes it's hard sought, is not easily found. People have an uncanny knack of messing up perfect. Over the past months, the balance of our community has been upset. Neighbors, friends for years have been polarized against one another. Families divided. With this balance threatened, our community identity has been changed. That itself is tragic, because we have witnessed countless times over the past years that people may rise up and meet challenge after challenge, and sincerely hope that sense of community hasn't been, or will return, hasn't been lost. We must get this right. Years ago, a group much the same as you hammered out a comprehensive plan for Mason County, providing a blueprint for future growth of our community. That document has served us well, as it identifies who we are and provides a way of protecting that identity and a plan for responsible growth. Balance. If the transition of agricultural or prime agricultural land to industrial use, the size and scale of this proposal occurs, everything changes forever. Common sense tells you that if you change the land use of 6 to 24,000 acres, I've heard everything in between, it will alter everything. The sword that cuts both ways in this discussion are landowner rights. How could we be so brazen as to tell another what he or she can do on her property as long as it's legal? My answer is the only time I should have a say, or we should have a say, in when one property owner wants to do something, is when one property owner wants to do something that negatively affects the rights of the other. This proposal is a prime example. This proposal is a prime example, and this is an example of imbalance. My wife and I worked extremely hard to maintain and improve our home of 4 acres on Latham Pike and Mays Lick. Our home has been described by working farmers as too much to mow and not enough to farm.
That's 3 minutes.
I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bob. And this time we'll have Mike Miller, and after Mike, it will be Susie Wallingford.
Sir, I need your notice, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get finished.
I'm Mike Miller. I live at 5274 Old Sardis Pike. Can you hear me?
I don't know what you said.
5274 Old Sardis Pike. I have options for solar. Yes, I'm one of the bad guys.
Can you hold your mic close to your mouth, please?
I'm one of the bad guys, according to a lot of these other people in this room. Just because I have decided to make a decision for my family to make a better life for myself by signing that lease. Now, how is that so bad? I keep on hearing these people saying, our land. It's not theirs. It's my land. I'm the one that pays taxes. I'm the one that operates my land. It's not theirs. It doesn't affect their farmland. I drive through our community of Maze Lake, see all these anti-signs. So I say to myself, how does this affect these people personally? And I know most of them. And there's no way, they can never see this stuff. They live in town. They have jobs somewhere else. They don't live by the farms that's going to have the solar panels on it. Nowhere close. I ask you all, as this committee, how would it affect you personally where you live at? When you see it where you're at? Is it, I mean, we are fighting two things. It is view is one and jealousy is the second. That is the two problems they have with us. And that's all I really have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. At this time, we'll have Susie Wallingford, and after Susie, if Stephen Richards would be ready to speak.
Take me a second to get there. Hello, I'm Susie Wallingford. Thank you for giving us this opportunity, the public at large, to share our varying opinions. While we do have varying opinions, we do also have a lot of things in common. For example, oh, by the way, my address is 4 East 4th Street in Maysville. I'm your neighbor. And I also come from a 7th generation family of Mason Countyans and Mayesvillians. I also find this to be my home. However, I am only able to live here because my company allows me to work remote. Should I have decided I wanted to move back, I would have had to take over a 50% pay cut if I was to work for a comparable local job. Many of you know that, you know me, I work in tech. Some of you taught me. I went to prom with some of your children, partied with some of your children, played sports with some of your children. How many of you have children who can actually make a life for themselves here now? There aren't that many jobs available because our economy has been on a decline basically since I was born. That's really disappointing to me. I know that this commission and others serving Maysville and Mason County, as well as our community of public servants, share the vision of wanting Maysville and Mason County to prosper, not just during our lifetimes, but during the lifetimes of our children. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, "A rising tide lifts all boats." It is a phrase that is associated with the idea that an improved economy will benefit all of that economy's participants. What improves an economy? Money, healthier people, jobs, and education. In listening to a variety of public meetings over the last few months, not just related to solar, and speaking to other citizens, it is common knowledge that while many big things are indeed coming to Mason County, our economy is not improving at the same clip it could. For example, our city commissioners recently discussed not having enough money to effectively retain our firefighters and EMS staff, and some are leaving in order of better paying jobs elsewhere. In order to stay competitive and serve the next generation, our school system needs to attract the best of the best, which requires not just competitive pay, but a place you actually want to live. Take a drive on any city or county road, as many have discussed, and you'll see decrepit, condemned, and abandoned properties that are not only an eyesore, but also dangerous. If I have the choice of looking at industrial solar panels that are actually generating money for our economy, I prefer that 1,000% over my neighbors downtown who have just let their property go to rot.
That's 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. At this time, Steve Richards will come, and Julie Burton would be ready to speak when Mr. Richards is finished.
Forgive me, I have an impossible task here. I've got 18 items. And what I am going, my name is Steve Richards. I live at 2305 Glen Drive in Maysville. I'll try not, I just want to hit the highlights of the topics that haven't been covered on a few points. I won't get in, let me see if I can get this done in 3 minutes. Economically, these projects do not float on their own. There's never been a solar project in the United States to date that's been economic. For these projects to work, you have to have an investment tax credit for it to happen. An investment tax credit is a tax on each of us. They're reaching into your pockets and your pockets to pay for this. That's the only way these things float. It's been that way since the first one. Just to take the point of property devaluation to its next logical step, who is going to get sued when the property is devalued? Is it going to be the farm owners who accepted the agreements, or is it going to be the solar companies that have the deep pockets? As soon as the floodgates have been opened and they determine that somebody can be sued for depreciating their neighbor's property, that's coming. So that's just something to look out for. Third point, what land taxation rate are you going to apply in such a way, or are you going to apply it in such a way that you can make up for the revenues lost from tenant farmers, from the sales income for the local mills for Mayslick, Flemingsburg, and others, for reduced sales for seasonal Rural King John Deere tractor sales, tractor supply, car dealerships, and others, lost jobs for the truckers and the seed that haul the seed and the farm product, and these lost sales often translate into lost jobs. I have one last point, please bear with me. This is one you haven't heard yet. A 308 cartridge has a range of 1.5 miles. This is a standard deer hunting caliber. Are we going to protect the solar installations with no hunting buffer zones, a mile and a half rather, in all directions? If we do, that's a taking. And who gets compensated for that loss? How much? Adjacent landowners may not be able to hunt on their own land. Now this is a small thing, but it's part of Kentucky heritage. It's part of Kentucky culture. And one of the things that this solar system challenges and detracts from is the Kentucky heritage that we're all very proud of in this room. Thank you for my time.
Thank you, Steve. And this time we'll have Julie Burton, and believe it or not, people, the main man of the hour will be Nathan Crowder.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
Just 1 minute.
Are you ready? Hi, I'm Julie Burton. I live at 6103 Neptune Road in Ewing, Kentucky, but that is in Mason County.
I'm sorry, the name of the road?
Neptune, N-E-P-T-O-N. And it is in Mason County. Okay. I'm here to say thank you for your tireless efforts in researching the effects of merchant electric generating facilities on farmland. I know many people in this room have spent sleepless or nearly sleepless nights educating themselves on the topic, and I thank all of you, no matter where you fall on the spectrum with this. I thank all of you for your research and everything you looked into. It shows how much people care. My thesis for this short talk is that these facilities on a large scale will lead to food insecurity. Some of us are hungry, some of us haven't had supper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, that kind of thing, and this is something that kind of gets left out of the equation sometimes, but a traditional list of basic needs are air, water, food, and shelter. Merriam-Webster defines food insecurity as being unable to consistently access and afford adequate food. And as was said earlier, we could be producing more here. I feel sure most of us have heard the saying, buy land is something they're just not making any more of. That's been attributed to Mark Twain and others, but I've heard it, and that's very true. There's a reason certain lands were zoned agriculture. We need that land for cattle, corn, soybeans, hay. If A1 and A2 zone lands are permitted to be conditionally zoned to allow industrial solar at such a rapid pace here and throughout the U.S., that's a step in the wrong direction and will lead to food insecurity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. And our last speaker is Nathan Crowder. I believe I pronounced that right. Nathan here? Okay, well, that's it for the speakers. Is there anything, Michael or George, needs to be said before I recess this till 5:30 Thursday? We'll meet again 5:30 on Thursday if you wish. I appreciate everyone being here.
We need a formal motion to recess the public hearing, and then we'll need to follow it up with an adjournment motion.
I need a formal. Okay, I have a.
I'll make a motion. Okay. I'll make a motion.
Motion by Sandy, seconded by Peggy. All in favor to adjourn? I think it's pretty unanimous. We're adjourned.
Whoa. That was a motion to recess the public hearing.
I mean, I'm sorry, recess. Excuse my terms, recess.
It is recessed until 5:30 on Thursday here in the Fields Auditorium. Now you need a motion to adjourn the actual meeting.
Okay, Sandy and Peggy, make motion a second to adjourn. All in favor? Okay, now we adjourn the meeting. Come on.